Welcome, I'm Matt at US Frontier Miniatures. With this video, I'd like to show you how to create a log cabin like this one. I call it a settler's log cabin. You know, after young America purchased the Louisiana territory from France in 1805, European settlers flocked to the new frontier. And why not? Trees were readily available, as were the stones for the foundation and for the chimney. This is a miniature representation of what many of these now historic log cabins look like. And I would like to show you how to make one for yourself. Hello, I'm Matt from US Frontier Miniatures. Welcome to my workshop and studio. My purpose with these videos is to help you create quality, historically accurate miniatures. So whether you're a beginner, a miniature hobbyist, a model railroader, a mini war gamer, or just someone who wants to create a unique item that they can display on their mantle or bookcase, you've definitely come to the right place. I craft my miniatures in a 1/4 inch scale. However, the methods and techniques that are presented here can easily be adapted to other scales. No fancy power tools are needed. In fact, if you can handle common hand tools, you won't have any problems. Plus, with the techniques that I have learned over the years, plus some unique and simple methods that I have developed myself, making a quality, historically accurate miniature is within everyone's reach. Let's get started. The next step is to now go ahead and paint many of the stones. You will recall that in the end of the part 2 video, we first applied a light buttermilk wash as a base color over all of the stones. Now, in this step 2 of the coloring process, we will go ahead and use the 9 colors that you can see on this chart here. Incidentally, the chart is included with the free plan drawings below, along with details on all of the paints on our list of materials, supplies, and tools. We will start with the 3 paints under the category called the fewest on the chart, namely white birch, yellow ochre, and pewter gray. I'm starting with white birch that unfortunately is hard to see against our buttermilk wash background. But what I am doing is painting only about 5 or 6 stones in various locations on the fireplace. Don't worry if you occasionally get a little paint on a nearby stone. It will just add to the natural effect that we want to achieve. You can see the effect here of applying the 3 colors, well, at least the yellow and the gray, on the foundation and the fireplace. Note that I've only painted 1 or 2 stones on each side of the foundation in each color. Now I've finished painting the middle category of paints listed as medium under the chart, namely country gray, warm buff, and butter pecan. I painted about double the amount of stones compared to the group in the fewest category. Okay, I've applied the last 3 colors from the most category, sandstone, steel gray, and khaki, and I painted probably double the number of stones that I did from the medium category. To start the weathering process of the stones, we will next dry brush white paint on some of the more brighter colored ones. In dry brushing, you want to almost completely wipe off all the paint on the paper towel before applying, and then ever so lightly brush across a section of one stone. It is certainly a technique where less is better, and if you haven't tried it before, I would certainly recommend practicing it first. Next, in this weathering process of the stones, we're going to apply this Feldspar black antiquing glaze. The technique is simple. Apply it to small sections at a time. Paint it on generally as you would a wash, and then immediately wipe it dry with a cotton cloth. The colors and shades will vary, of course, based on which stones just had the basic buttermilk wash and which stones have been painted, and of course the colors used. Well, there you go. Our miniature stones are starting to look like natural ones that we just pulled out of the ground of the Louisiana territory. Next, I use a product called Mod Podge Satin to seal the stones. That way we'll be able to wipe excessive cement off when we apply mortar between the stones. Make sure you apply this sealer well. While the sealer is drying, we're going to mix up the mortar for the stones. For this, I use Golden Light molding paste. They make two kinds, so make sure you get the light because it's ideal for working with miniatures for such things as mortar and stucco. I'll first mix together 2 parts country gray and 1 part white paint. I'll then combine the 2-to-1 paint mixture with the light molding paste. In the case of the light molding paste, there's no need to size it out because it'll pretty much any amount will pretty much turn into the color that you mix it with. To apply the grout that we have mixed, we will need both cotton cloths soaked in water and dry ones. We will then apply the grout with a regular paintbrush, making sure that we get it thoroughly between all the stones. Then we will wipe off the excess from the top of the stones, first with the damp cloth, and followed by buffing the stones, the tops of them, with a dry cloth. Okay, the foundation is done, so now for the fireplace. The fireplace is now done, and I must say that both the fireplace and the foundation now look like the real McCoy in miniature. As a final step, we will paint the top of the chimney with this wrought iron folk art black paint. We're now at the next step of gluing all our logs onto the cabin structure. With the base logs already in place, we will start by first gluing a set of front and back logs, fitting them into the dovetails that are already there on the side logs. Then we will do a set of left and right side logs. Like the real cabins that were built, we will proceed upward like this, one log at a time, in the pattern that I've just described. Notice that the gap between two logs will vary based on how much wood was peeled off in the rounding process. Most of the gaps will vary because of the width and angle of the dovetails, which of course are all not the same. But this is exactly the effect that we want. It is important to check that the glued logs all around the cabin are fairly level and at the same general height. You can always make adjustments as you add new logs in order to arrive at the top with all sides equal in height. Of course, you'll have to cut some of the small logs that we made in order to fit between door frames and the end of the cabin, or window frames for that matter too. I recommend that you use both Elmer's glue oil and super glue, alternating the drops that you put on the wood in order to glue these logs on. Well, this is another tedious process, doing one log at a time. So I'll do some work off camera and come back to you when we're ready to glue the first window on. Okay, I'm 4 logs high now, and just about at the right spot for the bottom of the window. I'm just making sure that the log is basically level, because what we're going to do is lay that window right on that 4th log up. It's just about the same size as the plans indicated, but it's not important in terms of the height of the window to go according to the plans. It's more important to go in accordance with the height of that 4th log because of the difference in the gaps that I talked about before. I use super glue to glue the logs on, and I just put a dot on a piece of paper and then use a paper clip to apply it very carefully just to the edges of the window. And that's all that I use for this film. The super glue does dry clear, but it doesn't look perfect if you get glue in the inside area. So I use a pair of tweezers to go ahead and position it where I want to and try to do it the first time. I also use a square, to make sure I have it in alignment so it's straight up and down when I apply it. After the window frame is dry, I use a piece of painter's tape to cover the frame. I primarily do this to protect that black film, especially when we do the daubing process, where we put the mortar-like substance between the logs. Well, we're at the top now, and our log cabin is certainly taking shape. We just have to glue that last upper window on the side, and then we can go ahead and put those hand-cut clapboards, for the upper sides. For the attic or loft area, we're going to use 1/4 by 1/32 inch basswood strips. The clapboard strips were also cut from logs, and unlike our milled lumber of today, they were very uneven. So we will make our own clapboard strips in the same way. First step will be to weather basswood strips using the same India ink and alcohol mix that we use for our logs. We will also cut slivers from these rectangular wood strips to make them look like the authentic clapboards that were hewn from the logs. We will start with the side with the window on it, and again use a combination of Elmer's wood oil and super glue. And like any clapboard job that's done, we'll start by putting on a base layer at the bottom of the beginning of the clapboard. Then we will go ahead and glue all of our clapboards on, overlapping each preceding layer. Well, okay, this side is done. On to the next side. But first, make sure you sand off the edges, which these angles, by the way, are a 45-degree angle. But let's go ahead and do the next side, and I'll get back to you. Well, okay, I'm finished with the chimney side now. And what we want to do at this point is to do a little additional weathering to those clapboards. What I want to do is apply a lime wash glaze. Like the antique black one, it's also made by Velspar. So the technique is very similar as with a lot of glazes or washes, in that you want to brush on a section of it and then rub it off immediately with a dry cotton cloth. Well, that's the end of part 3 of this overall 4-part project. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up below and also subscribe. That way you will be informed of my new projects. Below I have added time codes and major section headings so that you can access specific parts of the project more easily. This is a complete craft project, from the chimney top right down to the display stand that it sits on. And by necessity, I have divided it into 4 video parts according to the sequence that I actually built it in. So if you're going to build this log cabin for yourself, I certainly recommend that you view the other 3 videos. Don't forget to get a free copy of the house plan drawings below, plus the list of supplies and materials that are used in this project. In case you can't get some of these items locally, I've furnished links for you to obtain them. Lastly, I invite you to visit my Etsy shop, where you can see examples of my other creations. See the link below. Good luck with your own build, and if you have any questions that I can help with, please ask them in the comments section below.